Welcome to Doors to Hope and Healing, an inside look at the many facets of work that is happening at the Department of Children and Families, between our staff, the families we serve, and our community partners. My name is Jaqueline Ford. I have had the honor of working for the department for almost 30 years. And although I may be familiar with many of the topics we bring to you, I have invited experts in those fields to help us dispel the myths and misconceptions that can often be barriers to our work. Join us as we open our doors and invite you to have a seat at our table. Maria, thank you so much for being on Doors to Hope and Healing today. Your message is so powerful and inspiring, and I have no doubt that our viewers are going to watch today and leave just with a better understanding of our department, about what our youth need, and about the impact that you're going to make as you move forward in your educational aspirations and what you're doing in graduate school. You know, having had the opportunity, or the privilege, I should say, of writing your special interest story, I have firsthand experienced your humility and your grace and your selflessness, and it's an honor to have you on the show today. For our show today, I want to honor the pivotal moments in your life, in your story, and I want to start a little bit later in your life. And I want to begin with a quote. And this is something that you had said. I realized that my experiences could lead me in two different ways, either stuck within the trauma and allowing that trauma to dictate my life, or I can use my experiences as power, allowing me the grace to blossom. And there is no doubt that you have chosen empowerment as you have continued to live your life. So let us start today with the chapter in your life that begins with your junior year of high school. Tell me about your experiences in your junior year of high school and the impact that the Rising Scholars Program had in your life.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me on here today. I'm so excited and honored to be here. UConn Rising Scholars was really one of my first experiences and exposure to campus life, to college. I, likely many other foster youth, didn't really think that college was in the plans for me. And I didn't really see myself getting there, but I knew I wanted it. And I love learning, and school was always a safe haven for me. So to have access to that opportunity was really that eye-opener to give me the confidence to say I can go to college. And UConn specifically is just one of the many options for me. And just learning, what does being a student look like at this level? Changing schools so many times was pretty challenging in terms of it felt like I was always trying to catch up. So UConn Rising Scholars was really that boost to feel prepared going into academia, really.
So we've had Rising Scholars on the show, but for any of our viewers who may not have seen that segment, what is the mission of Rising Scholars? Not getting too deep into what their values and philosophies are, but why do you feel that you came to know the Rising Scholars?
Well, I feel like from my experience, that their mission was really centered around uplifting foster youth in care, or youth with lived experience in care. And that looked like how to provide them access to education, to professional development, to community, being, living for a summer with other foster youth in Connecticut. So really, I think very much centered on the access and uplifting.
Yep, that's exactly it. And then they continue to support our college youth that are in our foster care program, to give them that support. So when Rising Scholars came in your junior year, did you get to go on campus at UConn and actually, really get a taste of what that secondary post-education would be like?
Yes. So like I said before, it was a summer, and thankfully it was a pretty quiet summer, because since actually being an undergraduate, I realized there's very busy summers. But when we were there, it was just being there on the campus. It really did feel like we had the whole campus to ourselves, and going to class, going to tutoring hours. We also went on different field trips that were outside of campus, which were still equally impactful, I would say. And overall, just really immerse ourselves in what college looks like. So yeah.
When you spent that summer there, did you know that you wanted to go to UConn? Was that your first choice college?
Yeah, definitely my first choice. It was big. We were talking about this before,
Yes.
but it's a very big campus. And so I feel like at first, when I first got there, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is like too overwhelming for me. But since we navigated campus and we had to go from, the north to the west, all the different regions of UConn, it really allowed me to feel more comfortable and knowing that UConn was my first choice. And I also met my mentor there. She was the program director, I believe, at the time. Her name is Alex Katz, and she also was like the biggest influence of going to UConn. She was like, I work here, you're coming too. Yeah. And so that is definitely, those two factors are what led me to go to UConn.
So you got into UConn.
Yes.
And you went and you started, what year was that you started at UConn?
2019.
In 2019. And while you were there, you had a leadership capacity in an organization called Creating Caring Communities. So talk to us about what that CCC is. I know we use acronyms a lot, so I wanted to spell it out.
So actually, CCC, speaking of Alex, was handed down to me by her. She had founded it during her undergraduate career at UConn in 2014. And so now she works there. She did work there previously, and she really gave me her baby. And what we did was, our primary focus was to serve youth students at UConn who were experiencing homelessness, housing insecurity, who were involved in the foster care system. And what we found is that the population really evolved to look like anyone who really just wanted a caring and safe space to feel as though they belonged, and that they were seen. And so that's really what our mission has been centered around. And also what it means is having to tap into what do they want, what do they need. And so what we do has evolved over time, but definitely grounded in the same mission for sure.
I mean, college is so overwhelming to begin that level of independence and trying to navigate that, let alone having those insecurities that you made mention of. And is that organization still active after all these years?
Yes, I'm very proud and blessed to say that it is. And we have new leadership, and kind of what I was saying before is just that it has evolved, and now I think it has turned into something that's really centered on community. So before, we did a lot of trainings to other departments about what does homelessness look like, housing insecurity, and they still do some of that, but they also do fun events and they do community gathering events, which is something that's really important, especially post-COVID.
And is that with the organization members, or is it inviting the whole campus community to become involved?
Both. Yeah, it's both. So
it's creating that awareness that some people just don't know.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just have to be enlightened about what those issues are that are facing these students. Yeah. You have a very impressive resume, and notably you were selected as a member of the 2023 cohort for Jim Casey Fellows by the Annie E. Casey Foundation. Can you tell us what it felt like to collaborate with other youth across our country on this life experience, lived experience?
Yeah, so that was... There's so much I could say about the Jim Casey Fellowship, and we were in Baltimore, and then we also spent a day at the Hill, one of our very last few days. But to have just a bunch of young leaders who had lived experience in one space was something, honestly, kind of indescribable. It was a place where we just felt familiar and we felt safe, and we knew that we could understand each other without having to explain our identities, our lived experiences. And what was really powerful is we all got into this space. They just put us in one room on the first day, and we just got to work. It was just there were just so many powerful voices, change makers, and we were in that space and just cultivating so many solutions and ideating different ideas of how do we, solve this issue or solve that. And of course we knew we couldn't necessarily solve, let's say, housing insecurity, but we knew that we had the lived expertise and the knowledge and the ingenuity to make some ripples of impact in that space. So
what were some of the issues that were brought to the table that you feel that you were able to, I mean, you would love to be able to solve all the problems of the world, right? Yeah. But what was your memory of some of the issues that you did face and that you tried to address? Yeah,
a lot of it was centered around child welfare. And I remember one of the days actually took us on what they called a data walk. And so they had different graphs and tables, and they taught us, what is data, but what is data, and, you know, how to interpret it, and especially how do you interpret it in the lens of our own lived experience. And then we went through, and that was really a lot of what we did, is like, how do we center our lived experiences and our voices in the numbers and the data, so then we could then on the last day speak to stakeholders in the government about our lived experience in a way that could actually translate, you know, to them.
And were you able to bring any of that work that you did back to Connecticut?
Yes, I have. We still are, I'm still involved in the fellowship. We have remote meetings, usually monthly meetings, but those connections, like with other youth and young adults, was everything. And so we still, you know, see what ways can we connect, and in different spheres, whether that's professional or personal. And so it's really, I think, also the relationship building that I left with that will leave probably the most sustainable impact.
Sure, and having that at such a young age, you know,
Yeah.
you're just starting, and to have this strong network of other peers behind you is very powerful.
Yes.
So walk us through your role with the Youth Collaboratory. What does that entail?
Yeah, so it's so funny. I'm finding like there's so many strings of community in all of this, because I'm thinking the first thing that came to mind is community. And a lot of what we do is building community in other communities. Specifically, we're a national nonprofit, and we serve grantee sites, youth serving organizations by, you know, providing best practices, data analysis, all that kind of technical stuff. But really at the center of what we do is how do we inform communities, and how do we meet communities where they're at, so that we can, you know, make, I keep saying make change, but I would say make the small changes necessary. Yeah.
And is your audience or the collaboration that you're creating, is it for youth in the foster care system specifically, or just youth who are vulnerable and they need additional supports, even if they're with their birth families?
Yeah, so I would say a large majority of our grantees are youth who are vulnerable, but we have, we have youth in the foster care system, juvenile justice system, different, usually what we say, systems impacted youth. Yeah. So, yeah.
And there's many systems with our impacted youth. Walk us through your role, your scholar role with the Bold Women's Leadership Network.
This has been such a blessing that I feel like I've just received so many gifts from for such a long period of time now. During my undergraduate junior year, I started with their scholarship program. And there partially it's in the name Bold Woman. It's ran, it's led, and it serves bold women. And so to have those role models in front of me, seeing them every week, learning from them every week was very impactful for...
How did you get involved with them? Did you have to apply or be nominated?
Yes.
So how did that process?
So that process, and I believe it's evolved a little bit over time since I've started, but you did have to both apply and get nominated or have a nominator. So I had Alex, as I mentioned before. And so, yeah, and when you're in the interview, you have to explain, what idea do you have? Because part of it is they give you a grant to basically do whatever you want as a project, usually something that will, be for the better good of whatever group or society. And so what I wanted to do was all around foster youth or just young people in general. And so, yeah, and then I was able to get in.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And how long do you get to stay a part of this Bold Women's Leadership group?
So usually for the scholarship program, it's until senior year. And then they have a fellowship program, which I'm actually in now, in which you also apply to. And they had honestly generously offered me the opportunity to do it. So yeah, and that's for a year afterwards.
Because you knew them during your undergraduate years. So
Yeah.
what kind of work did you do through that grant?
Yeah, so it was amazing. I used the grant funding to, again, I wanted to do something for youth. So I actually went to our previous commissioner, Durante's, and I asked her and I was like, do you know of any avenues I could go down with this? I really just want to do something that would help others in our community. And she had connected me to the Department of Labor and Marissa Cardona. And that connection was everything. And I'm very thankful for the energy that she put into that. So then from there, we built a professional and personal development day / kind of like program workshop I guess, for other for high school students in the Meriden area, and that was very, very beautiful to see that play out. Yeah.
And is it something that continues? The
Well,
impact of your work?
yeah, I would say the impact of that, definitely. I think they were able to see more of the needs, because it was closer to COVID than we are now. So I think there was so much catching up to do. So I think what they saw is that they were able to get a scope of like, what are the needs and how do we continue repeating the same workshop, the same program, maybe in different regions around Connecticut. Yeah.
That's wonderful. You're so busy. And you're also you're at the Child's Advocate's Office?
Yes.
And so tell us about your work there.
Yeah, so that is through the fellowship. I have through the Bold Fellowship, I'm a policy fellow, but it's a co-fellowship with the Office of the Child Advocate in a commission that's on the General Assembly. So I'm kind of like, have my hands in two different areas, but one of them with the OCA, a lot of that is just so much learning about child welfare, and not just in a system, but as in a theoretical perspective as well. How do we look at it on a continuum for different subpopulations, different groups, and so forth. And then with the commission, we do a lot of stuff revolving around policy. So it's very nice to be able to say that I now know how to write some policy and do all that kind of stuff. So.
And you have great mentors in those roles.
Yes.
Before we go on to talk about your graduate school experiences and your future aspirations, let's talk about the strong women in your life that have helped you to grow and to continue to blossom. You know, you amaze me with how successful you are and how resilient you've been, and what a change maker you are at this young age, and even younger than you are today when you started on that path. Tell us about the women in your life and how you feel they were instrumental in helping you to build.
Yes. Yeah, I would say the first woman was I would say my biological mother, and she has passed, but I just think that there's this almost like ancestral lineage of just powerful women who have continuously needed to face different barriers, different forms of oppression even. And so sometimes I think like I do feel like I was just very blessed to be in this world and to feel that kind of behind me, to feel that support behind me. But one of them is Gina Clough, my social worker, and she has just been such an advocate for me. She has been even somewhat of like a mother figure for me. Like she has just always been in my corner rooting for me, and no matter what. So I'm very thankful for her, as well as my foster mother, who welcomed me into her home with open arms. And you know, her grandchildren and I are just like very, very closely connected, and they're a handful, but I definitely, I love them to death. And yeah.
And Alex, you mentioned Alex too.
Yes.
And you connected with her through that summer of Rising Scholars is when you first met her.
Yes. Yeah, I did. And it's really, I would say, like the consistency of these relationships are just what had made such a seminal impact on my life. You know, they no matter what I was going through, no matter how I was reacting, you know, there was a lot of traumatic experiences, and I would react from that as most anyone would. And they continuously showed up, and Alex has definitely been one of those people. She saw me when I was 15 to now. Yeah.
So a lot of years,
yeah.
And I'm sure she's so proud of you. If you were in a room with, you know, DCF social workers and foster parents and community leaders and advocates, what message would you give them about what you needed at that time, through every stage of your life, what you needed? And you had it. You were one of our youth who, you know, we're very blessed to have that consistency and that continuity of the same people and the same faces that have been there to support you. What would you say to them about the importance of remaining consistent and staying in that youth's corner?
Yeah, I really do believe it's a matter of being able to get out of survival mode and to not, and to be able to have someone who shows up consistently, with care and with love allowed me, as it does other young adults and other youth, to be able to see the love that we deserve and to be able to see ourselves as something that's more than what we think about ourselves at that moment. So to have someone to continuously show up did definitely install narratives in me that said, like, I am enough. I do deserve love. I do deserve a family, and all these things that I do feel like were lost due to my lived experiences prior. And so there's really nothing like unconditional love and care that allows anyone to grow and to blossom.
I agree with you, and I'm so glad you had those opportunities. So now you are a grad student at UConn. Talk to us about what your major is and what your future aspirations are.
So I love this question because I've been feeling so much just prosperity and room for abundance and possibility lately, and I do think it's in part just because of grad school. So I'm in the public policy program right now, and they're doing a lot of stuff that's interconnected with my work. So it's really great because I feel like I'm learning and then I'm applying all my learnings. But moving forward, I think on a personal level, I'd really love to get connected with my family, specifically my younger brother, and he's currently in Minnesota. He's in their foster care system, and talking about the people, my wide and very deep support network. I want to be able to be there for him, and so that's definitely something more personal. But it's definitely, I think, one of my most prioritized aspirations right now. And then later in the latter of that is law school. I'd really like to go to law school. I've always said I want to be a lawyer, and I don't really know if I want to be a lawyer now, but I definitely want to study law, and I want to be able to really learn how do I make and help make, because I can't do it all. I always say, like, there's, what is it? There's no me without we. But I definitely want to be able to learn to be able to make an impact with my community that goes farther than policy or, the bounds of that. So.
And do you think that you'd want to make that impact with the we within the child welfare system? Is that where you feel driven to focus your career goals on?
Yes, definitely. Definitely providing back to the child welfare system, and as well as, like, I have so much to be grateful for, and it really is because of key child welfare stakeholders and, key people in my life that I had spoken about before. But it's also, I've seen the disparities and I have seen the gaps. But I think that once you put both together and are able to honor the duality of that and the fluidity of that and come to a point of acceptance, I think that things like policy and things like law and those changes really provide a lot of room for opportunity and possibility.
Well, you are such a bright light, and you have such a way of making everyone in a room feel like they're the most important person in that room. And that's a gift that you have and a gift that you give to others. And I have no doubt that you will be a colleague of mine someday and maybe even our future commissioner of the Department of Children and Families, because when you take education and a bright mind and such a passionate, compassionate heart, and you put that together, you can move mountains. And you want to buy in to what you're doing, what you're selling. You want to be a part of the work that you're doing. And I know that you can, and you are already a leader in so much of the work that you're doing. Is there anything that I missed as far as your, what's in your resume? You're a scholar, you're a fellow, you're a student, which is the most important right now.
Yes.
So that you can get that. And when do you graduate?
2024, May 2024.
Okay, that's coming right up. That's this spring.
Yeah,
That's so exciting.
Yeah, literally. I'm so excited.
Well, you'll have to come back and visit with us here on
Yes.
Doors to Hope and Healing and tell us about the next chapter of your life.
Yes.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Maria's lived experience underscores the importance of recognizing one's intrinsic worth, embracing vulnerability and the demands that trauma places on someone's life. To read more about Maria, you can visit the DCF website and look for her personal story in our spotlight. But if any of our viewers are interested in being a foster or adoptive parent, please give a call to the Kid Hero line, which is 1-888-KID-HERO, or you can visit our website, ctfosteradopt.com. Thank you for watching.
Sometimes life just happens. Don't worry. Farmington Motorsports will get you back on the road and at a fair price. From towing to tires, emissions to transmissions.
Our ASC certified techs do it all.
Farmington Motorsports is a family-run business. We're a Napa Auto Center and AAA approved. We work on all makes and models from preventative maintenance to major repairs.
And every repair is backed by our 2-year, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty.
When life happens to you, don't worry. Farmington Motorsports.
I'm your host, Kurt Barwis. Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Andrew Lynn.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Veterans Corner. My name's Chuck Wooden.
Decision for ourselves for this week, if we want to be made well.
Hi, welcome to the crack of dawn. It's Dawn Lombardi. I'm starting the painting. It's going to be the clips with some water. Love it.
He took me on the sets of Lost in Space, Batman.
Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time,